All right, let's talk boxing. So you've got Zuffa Boxing is proposed making changes to the Ali Act, and now you have traditional boxing promoters are acting like it's the end of the world. Let's talk about boxing from a business perspective. Up until about 2015, I think it was Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. That's the last time we had a large payday that was earned through the match. Now, beyond that, it's all Saudi money. So you have boxing being artificially inflated by Saudi money. So the sport is not really self sustaining. It's just one big spectacle after another that's being propped up by a government's investment fund. So you have these promoters that are upset because someone's coming in, Zuffa Boxing, and they're trying to change the game, create a league, make it much more like what the UFC is. And now the narratives all start. So we're not really talking about business most of the time. We're talking about narratives. You've got De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum. You've got these guys that have been doing it the way they've wanted to do it forever, and they don't like it that someone's coming in calling foul. You've got someone in Dana White that's coming in and saying, hey, boxing, you've got to change. You don't have real stars anymore. You don't have a sustainable business model. You don't have clear rankings that make any sense. You have guys bouncing all over the place, all valid arguments. Now, on the promoter side, where they're trying to protect their income, they're trying to protect their way of life, they're throwing shade too, saying, oh, now guys are going to be undervalued, underpaid. The thing is, guys are being overpaid. So what happens when the Saudi government decides they don't want to invest in boxing anymore? What's it going to do? HBO Boxing isn't there anymore. Showbox is not there anymore. ESPN's not there anymore. USA is not there anymore. You had all these shows that were big media operations that were, getting boxing to be able to afford what it was doing. Pay-per-views are pretty much dead because of streaming. So what? You've got DAZN, and I think ESPN does boxing here and there. I don't even know because it's so low key, because there's no reason to promote it, because it's artificially propped up with government funds. So boxing is this big smoke and mirrors thing right now. It's this fake spectacle that is making a small group of people a lot of money. The truth of it is that entry level boxers do not make a lot of money. Mid tier boxers make decent money compared to what the average person's going to make in the world, but they're still not making the same or even close to the same money as what the big names are. The $100 million paydays that a lot of these guys are getting with these spectacle fights, it's just not real. It's not sustainable. And then you have Zuffa comes along and they say, okay, we want to be able to sign fighters and develop them. We're going to come up with a pay structure. We're going to come up with a league structure. There's going to be rankings. You're going to have champions. You're going to have challengers. And then you're going to have the entire media machine that TKO has to get behind them and take, instead of the top two guys in the division, but everybody in the division, and tell the story and, develop the narratives and build a real league feel. So from how the business is being done, Zuffa really is providing a reasonable solution to the problem that boxing has: the lack of organization and the focus on just the major stars. Boxers will have much more opportunity under a league format than they do under the current format. Now, the other side of it is the spectacle driven traditional promoter side has a massive value too. The same way MVP Productions putting on the MMA show on Netflix compared to the UFC. People fight in the UFC for a certain amount of time, become champs, develop their names, get big brands, and then they have the opportunity, once they leave the UFC, to go and do spectacle fights for big numbers. Boxing can follow the same model. There is a lot of opportunity for both sides of the argument to make money here. So if they coordinate instead of bicker over process, they all can do better, and they can establish something that will survive when the Saudi money dries up. Because if you look at the Saudi government, they're spending money around the world to make people want to go to Saudi Arabia. But the truth of it is, that's probably not going to happen. It's a temporary situation. When the Saudi government realizes how much money they're just burning on this spectacle, they're going to start pulling back. And when they pull back, it'll probably be very fast and the sport's going to dry up. And then they're going to have to scramble to figure out, what do we do next? I think the reasonable idea is to come up with more of a league format instead of the fractured mess that boxing is today. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm like this massive Zuffa fan. I'm not a massive Dana White guy, but I do like the idea of it. I do think the idea works. I think for the long-term benefit of the athletes and the sport, they need to go in this direction. They need to get organized this way. They're not changing the Ali Act so that the organization can damage fighters more. Fighters right now are working with promoters to put on these events, and they're making big money, but they don't have the same kind of corporate structure that's going to allow them to develop the storylines, to create more characters than one or two, to have a clear ranking, to have a clear path of getting to a title that, say, something like Zuffa will provide. So I think Zuffa is a bit of a breath of fresh air for a young boxer coming up who's looking at it saying, hey, if I lose, my career is over. If I don't get with the right promoter, I'm done. Now you have a trajectory. You do the basic work to get yourself into the league, and then you use the league to get your name out there, to get your record up, to develop a brand and credibility so that if opportunities come out outside of the league, you can get outside of the league and then you can go and do the spectacle fights and you can go make that money. But these fighters need somewhere to go to be developed. Oscar De La Hoya was on Ariel Helwani, and he was talking about how he doesn't think Dana White's a true promoter until he takes somebody from scratch and develops them. And that's the part of boxing that bothers me, is that the manager, promoter, whatever, they they're taking individuals and they're like curating a career for them and they're developing them and they're very involved in all aspects of it. Where I feel that that's a crossover that shouldn't really be happening. The person that's putting on the event should be putting on the event. The person that's training fighters should train fighters, and the manager should manage them. It shouldn't be this cyclical group where you have one or two people handling every aspect of it, because that's where you run into the situation where guys have a lot of fights, but they haven't really fought anybody because everybody's just depending upon the one guy being successful. So they're bringing in people to lose over and over and over to create fake credibility. And then they get them into a big money situation and they really have to fight somebody. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So having a clear path with real challenges that allows people to lose every once in a while and fight their way back because they're in a league structure, because there's rankings, because that's going to determine your destiny instead of a promoter who decides how much money he wants to put behind you or some foreign government's investment in a show. It's crazy. Boxing right now is more of a spectacle than a sport. Zuffa has the opportunity to bring a sport aspect back to boxing. UFC is a league. It is truly a sport with a bit of spectacle. It is entertainment, but it is more sport than it is spectacle. MVP, all spectacle. I like seeing a UFC style league for boxers. You know what you're going to get paid. You know what the challenge is going to be. You can see the clear path. It just makes more sense to me. I think it makes more sense when you take the emotion out of it and when you stop fighting about the names. Like, do you like De La Hoya or not? Do you like Eddie Hearn? Do you like Dana White? Who cares about the names right now? Look at it purely from the business side of it and look at it from a structure side of it. It makes much more sense to have a structured league that provides an equal level of pay at the different tiers for boxers with a clear path to move towards the title, and then acting basically as a partnership between the league and the champion so that they can maximize their value. And then they've exhausted their championship value, they can move on to the spectacle fights, and then they can sell for much higher amounts. And then they can go and they can work with a promoter to put on a show that's all about them. But in the league, it's about boxing. It's about the rankings. It's about the titles. And it's about the stories that the organization like TKO can tell to bring eyeballs and can actually generate revenue around the sport instead of depending upon outside money like Saudi money, instead of cultivating a relationship with an audience. Because right now I don't see boxing having a real relationship with an audience. I think it is defending a culture and it is protecting the money that it's getting from Saudi Arabia. We can't get around that. Since 2015, boxing has been artificially inflated and supported by non-boxing money. That's not gonna be forever. And then what? What, you go into a 10-year drought because you gotta figure out how to get the fans back? Well, TKO has the media machine and the structure to develop the fan base and keep them involved. So that's a good thing. It's not bad for the sport. The good thing is having a real fan base, having a self-sustaining industry, and giving people opportunity. So all this fighter pay argument and all this weirdness, it's a lot of people just defending an old way and then people trying to promote a new way, and there's not a lot of talk about structure and reality. And when you talk about, say, Conor Benn, who Dana White and Zuffa pulled from Eddie Hearn, he went over and everyone's talking about a $15 million payday. The reason Dana was able to do it is because he got Saudi money. TKO is not paying $15 million to Conor Benn. The Saudi Arabian government is giving Zuffa the money to pay Conor Benn. It's a one-time deal. Zuffa is going to make the money that it makes the way that it makes it. And it has the ability right now because Saudis are really into boxing investment to pull that money. And they were able to pull Conor Benn away from Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's upset. He feels so butthurt about it, whatever. But you're in a model that is 100% going to create this situation over and over and over again. You're talking about fighters who are being told that money is the only thing that matters. So why are you surprised that the guy leaves you for the money? It's not about loyalty. It's about business. These guys are stepping into the ring. They're putting their long-term health on the line, and they're looking at their kids going, hey, if this is the last fight I ever am able to fight, how am I going to take care of my kids forever? So they're always going to chase the money. So what? You're going to get mad that the Saudis backed Dana, or you're going to get mad at Dana because he was able to have a conversation that got him the funds that he needed? Stop. This isn't sport. This is petty politics. Sport, that is about the best going against the best, and then the fans putting up the capital to make it happen. That's not what's happening right now. That's where the feuds are developing because you're all fighting over somebody else's money instead of developing a fan base, developing the sport, and giving fighters an opportunity to have that relationship with the fans. That's going to create a self-fulfilling machine instead of it being this gifted cash flow that's allowing a minority of people to make a massive amount of money. And I'm not even going to say there's that much entertainment going on because there's not that many eyeballs anymore. If you look at the reality of boxing and who's watching, it's not that big. I think Zuffa has an opportunity to bring through Paramount Plus and its promotional machine to bring a lot more real people into it and to make boxing an actual sport of the people again. So that's my take on it. Agree, disagree. Is what it is. We all have opinions, but I'm talking from a purely business perspective without really putting any names on it. Just think about it. Having a league with real structure, with a real end game, and fighters having the ability to understand at a certain level they're going to get paid a certain amount of money, and then choosing if that's the league and that's the money structure for them is way better than these fictitious conversations about massive paydays that really only occur for a very, very small group of people. The vast majority of boxers out there do not box full time, do not make real money, and they take tremendous amounts of damage. So this is Brian Wright. I'm the coach. This is my opinion. Let me know what you think. Follow, like, share. Let me know what's up. Peace.